Welcome. Welcome one and welcome all. We're going to get started here in just a little bit. We've got about 4 minutes actually, so this timer might cycle a couple times before we're actually ready to get the show started. I just wanted to kind of start setting the vibe for the night. This is going to be a cool episode, I think. I hope you guys like it. I'm glad you're already here. You guys are awesome. I appreciate you. And over the next, however long, I'll build up that Discord server into something really cool. And I'm mentioning the Discord server because my friends are in the Discord server right now. Maddie Spice, DJ, David, they're all in there hanging out. Obsessive Gardener, my guy. Crazy J as well. I hope you're all having a wonderful evening. We've got just a few minutes here until it's time to get this party started. There is a disclaimer. The information presented on this channel may be upsetting to sensitive viewers. What you're about to see is intended to document real accounts of the strange and paranormal. All government documents in this video were obtained through legal means, including the Freedom of Information Act. View at your own discretion. It's almost time to start the spooky stream. I hope you all ate your tacos this Tuesday. Let's get started. From the Ohio River Valley and the Great American Midwest, good evening, good morning, and welcome to CHILIMANCER's Paranormal Stream, Episode 2. I'm Donnie, the CHILIMANCER, and for the next 2 hours, I'll be your facilitator of the strange and unusual. As Art Bell would say, get ready for extraterrestrial radio. So turn down your lights, get in your PJs, grab something to drink or a bowl of whatever you'd like, and prepare to join us on our mutual descent into yet another mysterious rabbit hole. Tonight, during the first half of the show, we're going to be going through official U.S. Army intelligence documents obtained through a 2003 Freedom of Information Act request. This mysterious document is officially titled Analysis and Assessment of Gateway Process, although it's known colloquially as the Gateway Document. And it tells of a holographic reality where the power of the conscious human mind is much more influential than society as a whole would have you believe, including how to induce out-of-body experiences. During the second half of the show, We're going to be opening up the Discord server to anyone with a first-hand account of the occult, time travel, UFOs, aliens, cryptids, and the paranormal. So if you have a story that you'd like to share, join us in CHILIMANCER's Mystical Fortress and I'll bring you on the show. If you haven't joined CHILIMANCER's Mystical Fortress, the join link has been carefully inserted into the description box below. Of course, here on the show, we follow the same rules that the legend Art Bell used for his shows. Rule number 1, no cursing. And rule number 2, only one call per night. That being said, let's begin our journey down the rabbit hole that is the Gateway document. So this is the actual document called the Gateway document. It's a 30-page report from the Department of the Army, U.S. Army Operational Group. It looks like U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command at Fort George G. Meade, Maryland. This was written on June 9th of 1983 to the commander of the U.S. Army Operational Group. It says, "You tasked me to provide an assessment of the Gateway experience in terms of its mechanics and ultimate practicality. As I set out to fulfill that tasking, it soon became clear that in order to assess the validity and practicality of the process, I needed to do enough supporting research and analysis to fully understand how and why the process works. Frankly, sir, that proved to be an extremely involved and difficult business. Initially, based on conversations with a physician who took the Gateway training with me, I had recourse to the biomedical models developed by Itzhak Bentov to obtain information concerning the physical aspects of the process. Then I found it necessary to delve into various sources for information concerning quantum mechanics in order to be able to describe the scientifically valid and reasonably lucid model and nature of human consciousness. I had to be able to construct a scientifically valid and reasonable lucid model of how consciousness functions under the influence of the brain hemispheric synchronization technique employed by Gateway. Once this was done, the next step involved recourse to theoretical physics in order to explain the character of the time-space dimension and the means by which expanded human consciousness transcends it in achieving Gateway's objectives. Finally, I again found it necessary to use physics to bring the whole phenomenon of out-of-body states into the language of physical science, to remove the stigma of its occult connotations, and put it in a frame of reference suited to objective assessment. I begin the narrative by briefly profiling the fundamental biomedical factors affecting such related techniques as hypnosis, biofeedback, and transcendental meditation, so that their objectives and mode of functioning could be compared in the reader's mind with the Gateway experience as the model of its underlying mechanics was developed. Additionally, that introductory material is useful in supporting the conclusions of the paper. I indicate that, at times, these related techniques may provide useful entry points to accelerate movement into the Gateway experience. Niels Bohr, the renowned physicist, once responded to his son's complaints about the obtuse nature of certain concepts in physics by saying, "You're not thinking, you're merely being logical." The physics of altered human consciousness deals with some conceptualizations that are not easily grasped or visualized exclusively in the context of ordinary left-brain linear thinking. So, to borrow Dr. Bohr's mode of expression, parts of this paper will require not only logic, but a touch of right-brain intuitive insight to achieve a complete, comfortable grasp of the concepts involved. Nevertheless, once that's done, I'm confident that their construction and application will stand up to the test of rational critique. Paradoxically, having gone to such great lengths to avoid to render judgments based on an occult or dogmatic frame of reference, in the end I found it necessary to return at least briefly to the question of the impact of the Gateway experience on common belief systems. I did so because although it was essential to avoid attempting to render an assessment in the context of such systems, I felt that it was necessary after having completed the analysis to point out that the resulting conclusions do not do any violence to the fundamental mainstream of either Eastern or Western belief systems. Unless that point is clearly established, the danger exists that some people will reject the whole concept of the gateway experience in the mistaken belief that it contradicts and is therefore alien to all that they hold to be right and true. This study is certainly not designed to be the last word on the subject, but I hope that the validity of its basic structure and the fundamental concepts upon which it is based will make a useful guide for other USA INSCOM personnel who are required to take the gateway training or work with gateway materials. So right here in the front of this document, he's basically talking about this gateway system and how this paper is going to detail some of the aspects of this gateway system. I love this part at the very end. It says that he went to great lengths to avoid trying to render judgments based on a cult or dogmatic frame of reference. So what he's saying is, whether you are a religious person or a non-religious person, these concepts in the gateway document are not trying to challenge any religion. In fact, it's completely separate from any kind of a structured belief system. All right, so let's go into it some more. I lost the screen. Hold on. There we go. So this paper is called The Gateway Experience, Brain Hemisphere Synchronization in Perspective. Introduction. In order to describe the Monroe Institute technique for achieving altered states of consciousness, the gateway experience, involving brain hemisphere synchronization or hemisync, the most effective way to begin is to briefly profile the basic mechanics which underlay operation of related methods such as hypnosis, transcendental meditation, and biofeedback. It's easiest to effectively describe what gateway is by beginning with a short description of those associated techniques that share some common aspects with the gateway experience, but which are nevertheless different. In this way, we can develop a frame of reference at the outset which will provide useful concepts to explain and understand gateway by comparison as we proceed. Oh, Crazy J is down there in the comments. Here, Crazy J. Here you go, bud. Let me try to... I'm attempting... It's not allowing me to edit my chat here. Let me try to see if I can get this for you here. Let's add moderator. Everybody, congratulations to Crazy J. Crazy J now should have the little gear. So if you type in something in the chat again, Jay, you'll have the little wrench beside your name. And thank you for helping me moderate. If any trolls come in here, of course, you know what to do. Give them the boot. So as far as this document goes, so far what it's said is that there's a technique. It doesn't really say what it does, but the technique at this point gets results by synchronizing two halves of your brain. According to the theories of psychologist Ronald Stone and the biomedical engineering models of Itzhak Bentov, hypnosis is basically a technique which permits acquisition of direct access to the sensory motor cortex and pleasure centers, and the lower cerebral emotional portions and the associated pleasure centers of the right side of the human brain following successful disengagement of the stimulus screening function of the left hemisphere of the brain. The left hemisphere of the brain is the self-cognitive, verbal, and linear reasoning component of the mind. It fulfills the function of screening incoming stimuli by categorizing, assessing, and assigning meaning prior to allowing passage to the right hemisphere of the mind. The right hemisphere, which functions as the non-critical, holistic, non-verbal, pattern-oriented component of the brain, appears to accept what the left hemisphere passes to it without question. Consequently, if the left hemisphere can be distracted, either through boredom or through reduction to a soporific semi-sleep state, external stimuli, to include hypnotic suggestions, are allowed to pass unchallenged to the right hemisphere where they're accepted and acted upon directly. So this part is actually talking about the communication of your conscious and unconscious mind using symbols. This is magic. This Army document is describing magical concepts. This is, without question, the most left field awesome thing that I've seen in a Freedom of Information Act document. Dude, this is crazy. The result may involve an emotional reaction originating in the lower cerebral region, sensory motor responses requiring involvement of the cortex, and so on. Both the sensory and the motor cortices of the right cerebral portion of the brain contain a sequence of points known as the homunculus, which corresponds to points in the body. There is Exhibit 1 on the next page. Stimulation of the corresponding area of the cortex causes intermediate response in the associated portion of the body. Consequently, induction of the suggestion that the left leg is numb, if it reaches the right hemisphere unchallenged and it's referred to the appropriate area of the sensory cortex, will result in an electrical reaction being generated that will induce the feeling of numbness. So this is saying that if you can sync up your brain, if I'm getting this right, then you can form changes in your body, or you can manipulate the way your body reacts to things using some sort of auto-suggestion. Let's go down to transcendental meditation. On the other hand, transcendental meditation works in a distinctly different fashion. In this technique, intense and protracted single-minded concentration on the process of drawing energy up the spinal cord ultimately results in what appears to be creation of acoustical standing waves in the cerebral ventricles, which are then conducted to the gray matter in the cerebral cortex on the right side of the brain. As a result, according to Bentov, these waves will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in such a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus, starting with the toes and on up. So if you can... Oh man, this is crazy. So if you concentrate on drawing energy up the spinal cord, it creates acoustical standing waves in the cerebral ventricles, which are then conducted to the gray matter in the cerebral cortex. So basically, by thinking of something, you can cause a physical change in your brain that stimulates your own little hologram that can change your reality, or at least the way that you experience it. As a result, these will stimulate and eventually polarize the cortex in a way that it will tend to conduct a signal along the homunculus, starting with the toes and on up. So that's just amazing. The Bentov biomedical model, as described in a book by Lee Sanella entitled Kundalini Psychosis or Transcendence, states that the standing acoustical waves are the result of the altered rhythm of heart sounds, which are occasioned by prolonged practice of meditation, and which set up sympathetic vibrations in the walls of the fluid-filled cavities. What is all of this? Let's get down and see... The third consciousness altering methodology, which will be described as biofeedback. It's somewhat unique in that it actually employs the self-cognitive powers of the left hemisphere to gain access to such areas of the right brain as the lower cerebral, motor, and sensory cortices and assorted pain or pleasure centers. So these different methods are all different methods of manipulating the processes inside of your own brain. The next section is actually about gateway and hemisync now. Now that we've briefly profiled the basic mechanics of the principal techniques for altering and expanding consciousness, which share some of the objectives or methods employed in the gateway experience, we may proceed to focus on what that technique actually involves. Fundamentally, the gateway experience is a training system designed to bring enhanced strength, focus, and coherence to the amplitude and frequency of brainwave output between the left and right hemispheres so as to alter consciousness, moving it outside the physical sphere so as to ultimately escape even the restrictions of time and space. So this is an Army document talking about the actual point of gateway and the hemisync. And it is to change your state of consciousness, to move your consciousness outside of your physical body, to escape the restrictions of time and space. You can remote view. You can go back in time. This is real technology. This has been developed by the United States military. The participant then gains access to the various levels of intuitive knowledge which the universe offers. What differentiates the gateway experience from forms of meditation is that its use of the hemisync technique, which is defined in a monograph by Monroe Institute trainer Melissa Yeager as a state of consciousness defined when the EEG patterns of both hemispheres are simultaneously equal in amplitude and frequency. Although hemisync seems to be rather rare and of only short duration in ordinary human consciousness, Melissa Yeager states that audio techniques developed by Bob Monroe can induce and sustain hemisync with the Institute's basic Focus 3 tapes. She also states that studies conducted by Elmer and Alice Green of the Menninger Foundation have shown that a subject with 20 years of training in Zen meditation could consistently establish hemisync at will, sustaining it for over 15 minutes. Dr. Stuart Twemlow, a psychiatrist and a researcher associate of the Monroe Institute, reports that in our studies of the effects of the Monroe tape system on brainwaves, we found that the tapes encourage the focusing of brain energy. It can be measured as with a light bulb in watts, into a narrower and narrower frequency band. This focusing of energy is not unlike the yoga concept of one-pointedness, which we may translate in Western terms as single-mindedness. Dr. Twemlow goes on to observe that as the individual gets into the tapes beyond Focus 3, there's a gradual increase in brainwave size, which is a measure of brain energy or power. So as you listen to these tapes, you're able to have higher amplitudes of brainwave energy. That is wild. So this has been reported. This has been studied, and I want to see all the other documents that have to do with this. You know what I mean? That's kind of wild. How's everybody doing? Thank you so much. It looks like we've got about 5 viewers now, and this is the CHILIMANCER's Mystical Fortress spooky, weird, paranormal stream. I, of course, am your host, CHILIMANCER. We are talking about the gateway process today, and the gateway process is a way that we have learned now that the gateway process is a way to synchronize the two hemispheres of your brain in order to reach the goal of basically transcending time and space, and becoming one with the universe in certain ways. This is wild. In hour 2, we're going to have open lines in the Discord server, so I'll be going into the open lines chat there in the Discord, and we'll all be able to talk and hang out, and your voice will be heard right here on this show. Crazy J in the comments says, I've heard about studies involving reaching deeper into the brain with certain sounds and other things. Yeah, binaural beats and different kinds of frequencies to go deeper into the brain, to amplify different parts of the brain and to stimulate different parts of the brain too. I love government cover-ups more to talk about and research. Yeah, I love government cover-ups too. I think that it's you know, there's been a lot of cover-ups, most of them about things that they weren't supposed to be doing that they decided that they needed to, and it was worth the moral liberties, I should say, that they took. So if you haven't hit the like button, it definitely does help. Go ahead and hit that like button down there below and like this video. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'm getting pretty darn close here. We've got 980 subscribers, as you can see right here on the screen. Our next sub goal is 990. Then we're on to 1,000. So we're getting there slowly but surely. And I couldn't do it without you guys. So thank you so much for being here. So point number 6 in this story here: lamp versus laser. Melissa Yeager uses a metaphor to help clarify the process involved in the use of hemisync in the gateway experience. She points out that the human mind in its natural state may be likened to an ordinary lamp, which expends energy in the form of both heat and light, but in a chaotic, incoherent way, which diffuses its energy over a wide area rather than limited depth. On the other hand, the human mind under the discipline of hemisync acts after the fashion of a laser beam, which produces a disciplined stream of light. The stream of energy is projected with total coherence of both frequency and amplitude, such that the surface area of a laser beam contains billions of times the concentrated energy found in a similar surface area on the sun. Gateway assumes that once the frequency and amplitude of the human brain are rendered coherent, it's possible to begin accelerating both, so that the human mind is soon resonating at an even higher vibrational level. The mind can then bring itself into synchronization with more sophisticated and rarefied energy levels in the universe. The mind, when operating at these increasingly rarefied levels, is assumed to be capable of processing the information thus received through the same fundamental matrix by which it makes sense of ordinary physical sensory input to achieve meaning in a cognitive context. So by building up these things in your mind and focusing your conscious thought, you can, well, she calls it like focusing your mind like a laser. I am noticing that the comment section has had some things in it. So let's go down to the comment section. David McCoffey says, just think something easy like the Weather Channel, where they play mellow music during good weather and intense music for severe weather. Music's been for a long time to relate products and ads and many things. The brain relates to certain sounds. Oh, absolutely. The brain has this way of, well, when you're talking about Alzheimer's patients, there have been people who have completely forgotten everything about their entire lives until they hear music from whenever they were younger, and it activates that part of the brain that just brings them back to, and brings their consciousness back into the current time. It's kind of amazing. Your mind works off colors too. Think stoplights. With training, you can train your brain to remember and recall things by relating colors and sounds. Yeah, David, I think it's amazing that you are mentioning this, because any sensory experience that you have, since the mind communicates, like the document was saying earlier, since the mind communicates using sensory experiences, any kind of a sensory experience can be used to communicate with your unconscious mind and cause changes. And you can train yourself in different ways to kind of program your own mind. Colors, smells, music, tastes, fabric, textures, temperatures. You know that a cold shower in the morning will wake you up, and it'll also excite your brain cells and kind of wake you up. Better than a cup of coffee. I'll tell you that. That's right. Yes, colors. Certain colors stimulate hunger and anger and calmness. I agree. McDonald's knows all about that. The golden arches, that red and that yellow, makes you hungry, makes you want to buy stuff. So, since we know what hemisync kind of is now, and I can put a link, actually. I'll put a link to this document so you can go and dig your way into it as well. If I read the entire thing, we're only on page 9, and this is 30 pages long. But Daniel Baker DJ says, you wish to understand the universe? Think of energy, frequency, and vibration. That's Nikola Tesla. Yeah, string theory says that everything is just an interaction, a resonant frequency between a resonant dissonance pocket between different vibrational brains in the universe. They become material by resonating at a specific frequency on the carrier wave that our own current reality is riding on. It's pretty wild, but that's how quarks and muons and gluons and all of that is created. All of those tiny little particles, and they're learning about this at CERN. Don't let them fool you. They know more than they're letting on. But yeah, I'll put the link to this down below. You guys can go here too. It is talking about holograms. Johnny Smallpepper, thank you so much for tuning in, sir. Today we're talking about the gateway process, the process that the United States Army had researched back in 1983, synchronizing the two hemispheres of the human mind so that they communicate in very powerful and directed ways to transcend time and space and to do things that only are possible in fairy tales and stories like that. Number 12 here says holograms. Energy creates, stores, and retrieves meaning in the universe by projecting or expanding at certain frequencies in a three-dimensional mode that creates a living pattern called a hologram. The concept of the hologram can be most easily understood by using an example cited by Bentov, in which he asks the reader to visualize a bowl full of water into which 3 pebbles are dropped. As the ripples created by the simultaneous entry of the 3 pebbles radiate outwards toward the rim of the bowl, Bentov further asks the reader to visualize that the surface of the water is suddenly flash frozen, so that the ripple pattern is preserved instantly. The ice is removed, leaving the 3 pebbles still laying at the bottom of the bowl. Then the ice is exposed to a powerful, coherent source of light, such as a laser. The result will be a three-dimensional model or representation of the position of the 3 pebbles suspended in midair. Holograms are capable of encoding so much detail that, for example, it is possible to take a holographic projection of a glass of swamp water and view it under magnification to see small organisms not visible to the naked eye when the glass of water itself is examined. The whole concept of holography, despite its scientific implications, has only been known to the physicists since the underlying mathematical principles were worked out by Dennis Gaber in 1947. He later won the Nobel Prize for his work. And DJ says, red and yellow are colors that make you think of food and stimulate the part of the brain that involves hunger. Crazy J says, the design of public schools somewhat simulate prisons to install discipline. It's a subconscious thing. That's correct. That is 100% correct. Laboratory demonstration of Gaber's work only occurred years later following invention of the laser, as biologist Lyle Watson explained. The purest kind of light available to us is produced by a laser, which sends out a beam in which all the waves are at one frequency, like those made by an ideal pebble in a perfect pond. When 2 laser beams touch, they produce an interference pattern of light and dark ripples that can be recorded on a photographic plate. And if one of the beams, instead of coming directly from the laser, is reflected first off of an object, such as a human face, The resulting pattern will be very complex indeed, but it'll still be recorded. The record will be a hologram of the face. The part encodes the whole. The further importance is the fact that even if we dropped our frozen hologram of the ripple pattern on the floor and broke it into a number of pieces, each individual piece would recreate the entire holographic image all by itself. The smaller the piece, the fuzzier and more distorted would be the resulting holographic projection, but the fact remains that a whole projection would nonetheless be made. The key to creating any hologram is that energy and motion must interact with energy in a state of rest, non-motion. Man, they are talking about how literally the universe itself creates holograms, or in its very nature is holographic. And it was also speaking about how the mind and the brain and the physical body, using conscious effort, can create waves that radiate out of the body and interact with the world around you. This isn't mumbo jumbo. This is the United States military researching this. It's talking about brains in phase, evaluation, self-cognition. Let's look at some of these images here. It's like the consciousness grid acts like the mind's computer software. It's the left hemisphere. Acts like the mind's computer software to reduce input from right hemisphere to verbal symbols and concepts. And then the right hemisphere consciousness grid reduces three-dimensional images, holographic images, to two-dimensional go, no-go for... Man, it cuts off that part. Now it's talking about the time-space dimension. I kind of want to read this part. This is kind of cool. Up to this point, our discussion of the gateway process has been relatively simple and easy to follow. Now the fun begins. Gateway involves more than just perception of those aspects of the universal hologram which can be accessed in the dimension of time-space as we know it. To explain how and why human consciousness can be brought to transcend the limitations of space-time is the next task which we must address. To do this, we must first appreciate what time and space are in order to understand how the dimension that they constitute can be transcended. Physicists define time as a measurement of energy or force in motion. In other words, it's a measurement of change. However, in order for energy to be in motion, it must first be limited in some way within the confines of some sort of vibratory pattern, so that its confinement gives it the capacity for being contained at a specific location which is distinguishable from other locations. David says, I think the brain's like a supercomputer where we use one side or another for certain tasks, but overall they store the same information like a backup system. In some ways, that has been demonstrated, for sure. Whenever I was going to college, I was taking psychology, and they were talking about the plasticity of the human brain, and about how there was a young girl who had half of her brain completely removed due to seizures, a terrible, terrible form of epilepsy. So she had the entire left hemisphere of her brain removed and filled with a foam. Her skull was filled with a foam to take up the kinds of that other space. And despite missing half of her brain, she was still able to walk, to talk, to see. She wasn't blind. How can a human mind be so plastic? Where does consciousness actually store itself? Maybe it is holographic. Intervening dimensions. So this government document is now talking about intervening dimensions. Since the absolute is conscious energy in infinity, so they're talking about the universe as an absolute. It's conscious energy in infinity is what they're calling it. So they say that the entire universe is made of conscious energy only, without boundaries, and it occupies every dimension to include the time-space dimension in which we have our physical existence, but we cannot perceive it. It overlays everything, as do many of the intervening ingredients or dimensions through which the energies of the universe pass on their way to and from their home in the state of infinity. To enter these intervening dimensions, human consciousness must focus with such intense coherence that the frequency of the energy pattern which comprises that consciousness, i.e. the brainwave output, can accelerate to the point where the resulting frequency pattern, if displayed on an oscilloscope, would look virtually like a solid line. Achievement of this state of altered consciousness sets the stage for perception of non-time-space dimensions because of the operation of a principle in physics known as Planck's distance. So they're basically saying that we can enter other dimensions. This is amazing to me. With conscious thought, you can enter coterminous dimensions close to your own reality. This is the United States government. This is an aspect of quantum mechanics which applies to the fact that any oscillating frequency, such as a brainwave, reaches 2 points of complete rest which constitute the boundary of each individual oscillation, i.e. the movement up or down. Without these points of rest, an oscillating wave pattern would be impossible, since the points of rest are required to permit the energy to change direction, and thus continue vibrating between rigid limits. So it's also true that when, for an infinitesimally brief instant, like the Planck distance, Planck time, that energy reaches one of its 2 points of rest as it clicks out of time-space and joins infinity. That critical step out of time-space occurs when the speed of the oscillation drops between 10 to the negative 33 centimeters per second. That's the Planck distance. To use the words of Bentov, quantum mechanics tells us that when distances go below Planck's distance, which is 10 to the negative 33 centimeter, we enter, in effect, a new world. To return to our case in point, the human consciousness wave pattern reaches such high frequency that the pattern of clickouts comes so close together that there's virtually continuity in it. Then, a portion of that consciousness is actually postulated to establish and maintain its information collection function in those dimensions located between time-space and the absolute. Thus, as the almost continuous click-out pattern establishes itself in continuous phase at speeds below Planck's distance but before reaching the state of total rest, human consciousness passes through the looking glass of time-space after the fashion of Alice beginning her journey into Wonderland. The gateway experience, with its associated hemisync technique, is apparently designed, if used systematically and patiently, to enable human consciousness to establish a coherent pattern of perception in those dimensions where speeds below Planck's distance apply. This holds true irrespective of whether the individual is exercising his consciousness while in his physical body, or whether he's doing so after being separated that consciousness from that physical body in a so-called out-of-body state mentioned earlier. This is amazing. David says, I think one movie that showed the mind and space in a unique way across periods of time was Interstellar. You are absolutely correct. Interstellar was an amazing film. It really does take more than one watching or one viewing of Interstellar to really get the crux of everything that happened in that movie, because they really put a lot of time and effort into Interstellar. A lot of things that you don't miss, or that you miss on the first, but you'll get later on. Let's see here. Dimensions in between. Now that we postulated the legitimacy of the assertion that the energy forms which compose consciousness can move beyond the time-space dimension, we need to turn our attention to the energy forms which... Oh, what's this? Oh, this is basically where he was talking about those oscillations. This is the energy oscillation wave. This is the perceptive time approaching infinity. And this is the observation of Planck's distance here. So within this very region right here, there is a clicked out portion of oscillating energy transversing intermediate dimensions. What that means is your consciousness can enter a different dimension if it's vibrating at a certain frequency. This is the United States military. I think they're unknowingly studying dreams or the state of mind you reach in dreams. They might be doing that. They might be doing that. I know that they have purposefully studied dreams, but dreams are a different state of mind as well, which are really weird. Why do we dream? I don't think science has actually figured out why we actually have dreams. Why do we need to sleep? Why is sleeping necessary? Why can't our body do anything while it's awake that it could do whenever it was sleeping? What do we go through when we're sleeping? What does our consciousness do when we're asleep? This stuff really kind of amazes me. Our place in time. I'll read this part. The observed distribution of galaxies suggests that our particular universe is located near the top of the egg, at the point where matter begins to fall back on itself, thus explaining the reason why the galaxies to the north are seen to be moving away more rapidly as they're caught up in the downturn of this stream of matter towards the far end of the cosmic egg. Layered over this cosmic egg is the absolute, which sustains the radiating nucleus from which the original jet of matter issued forth. As the stream of matter moves around the ovoid towards its destination at the black hole. So basically saying that the universe, there is a black hole and a white hole, and the universe is churning itself in a multi-dimensional toroid shape. It's a torus shape. I have theories beyond even those questions. Jay, I want to hear your theories. And in the second hour, if you're available, we can go on the record and talk today about your theories, what you think consciousness and the mind are, and what we are even effing doing here. Stylized rendition of a simple torus. Consciousness, the universe, our perspective in it, and what is actually going on. That's what we're talking about tonight. Number 28, the gateway method. So now we're finally down to the gateway method. Having put the gateway experience in context by postulating a structural outline of how and why it seems to work, and having shown what it is designed to achieve, the time has come to examine the specific techniques which comprise the gateway training process. These techniques are designed to enable the user of the gateway tapes to manipulate the high energy states which can be achieved if the user continues to work with the tapes over a period of time. The amount of time required to achieve advanced energy states and to fully exploit the techniques varies with the individual. The sensitivity of his nervous system, his general state of mind, and the extent to which he may have previously developed facility in related techniques such as transcendental meditation are all pertinent factors affecting the speed at which he may expect to progress. The gateway process begins by teaching the individual participant to isolate extraneous concerns in a visualization device called an energy conversion box. Next, the participant is introduced to a method of encouraging his mind and body to strive to achieve a state of resonance through utterance of a single tone, a monotonous, protracted humming sound that sets up a feeling of vibration, particularly in the head. He engages in this resonant tuning, as it's called, by humming along with a chorus of such sounds that are contained on the gateway tape. Following this, the participant is exposed to the gateway affirmation and is encouraged to repeat it to himself as he hears it repeated on the tape. This affirmation is a statement to the effect that the individual realizes that he's more than merely a physical body and that he deeply desires to expand his consciousness. David says, "Are dreams about the past, present, or the future? Some dream in many dimensions. Can dreams help you by looking at the past or help you by showing the future? David, similar to what I was going to say and some things I have in mind. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say, Jay. In about 5 minutes here, we are going to go on a short 5-minute break, and then we'll be right back to hit the open lines where I'll be listening to you guys in Discord, and we can chat a little bit about what you think. Hopefully all of this goes according to plan. As for right now, let's go ahead and talk about Hemisync. After that, he's exposed for the first time to the Hemisync sound frequencies and is encouraged to focus on and develop a perception of and appreciation for those feelings which accompany the synchronization of brainwave that results. So really what they're trying to teach right here is they're trying to teach you how to recognize the feeling of your brain syncing up and to latch onto that feeling and to sustain it. Next comes the technique of progressive and systematic physical relaxation, while the Hemisync frequencies are expanded to include additional forms of pink and white noise designed to put the physical body at the virtual threshold of sleep, as well to calm the left hemisphere of the mind while raising the right hemisphere to a state of heightened attentiveness. So what you guys are saying about dreams is exactly what seems to be going on here. Once all of this is achieved, the participant is invited to envisage a creation of an energy balloon comprised of an energy flow beginning at the center of the top of the head and extending down in all directions to the feet. The energy involved in this flow then proceeds up through the body and back out into the balloon pattern again. The energy balloon, which sets up a pattern very reminiscent of the cosmic egg discussed earlier, not only enhances bodily energy flow and encourages early achievement of a suitable resonant state, but it's also designed to provide protection against conscious entities possessing lower energy levels, which the participant might encounter in the event that he achieves an out-of-body state. It serves a precautionary purpose in the unlikely event that the participant's first out-of-body experience involves direct projection outside the terrestrial sphere. There is so much going on here. Crazy J says, David says, I guess with the explanation of the gateway, it seems about vibrating the brain in certain locations to make it work with another part of the brain. Bingo, exactly. And it starts syncing up the hemispheres in such a way that your consciousness can travel to another dimension and potentially to a different universe that is within a Planck's distance away from our very own. I'd like to see what you guys think about this document. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the link to this document in the description. Or no, I'm sorry. I'm going to put it in the chat. And if you guys want to copy that later on, and then you can go and check that out for yourself. It's safe, it's effective, and it's very interesting. David says, this chat also reminds me of the movie Total Recall, where the person is programmed in their brain to think they're in another world or life. Yeah, but in Total Recall, you never know whether it's real or whether it's all inside of that brain machine. That is that's the beauty of Total Recall, I guess. All right. David, thank you very much for hanging out. I will see you in just a few minutes. It is very interesting stuff, my guy. Let's see, are we down in the Discord server yet? All right, here, let's see. Let's see about Discord here. See what kind of other interesting things. Energy bar tool, remote viewing, living body map, the future, out of body movement, the role of REM sleep. This is some pretty deep information. It also says belief system considerations. In 1967, Alexandra David Neal and Lama Yongden wrote a book entitled The Secret Oral Teachings of Tibetan Buddhist Sects, which the following quote is taken. "The tangible world is movement, say the masters, not a collection of moving objects, but movement itself. There's no objects in movement. It's the movement which constitutes the objects which appear to us. They are nothing but movement. This movement is a continued and infinitely rapid succession of flashes of energy. All objects perceptible to our senses, all phenomena of whatever kind and whatever aspect they may assume, are constituted by a rapid succession of instantaneous events." The classic description of the universal hologram is found in a Hindu sutra, which says, "In the heaven of Indra there is said to be a network of pearls, so arranged that if you look at one, you see all the others reflected in it." I've cited this quotation because it shows that the concept of the universe, which at least some physicists are now coming to accept, is identical in its essential aspects with the one known to the learned elite in selected civilizations and cultures of high attainment in the ancient world. The concept of the cosmic egg, for example, is well known to scholars familiar with ancient writings of the Eastern religions, nor are the theories presented in this paper at variance with the essential tenets of the Judeo-Christian stream of thought. The concept of visible reality, i.e. the created world, as being an emanation of an omnipotent and omniscient divinity who is completely unknowable in his primary state of being. The absolute at rest in infinity is a concept straight out of Hebrew mystical philosophy. Even the Christian concept of the Trinity shines through the description of the absolute as presented in this paper. The description of energy totally at rest in infinity fits the Christian metaphysical concept of the Father, while the infinite self-consciousness resident in that energy, providing the motive force of will to bring a portion of that energy into motion to create reality. That corresponds with the sun. This is so because in order to attain self-consciousness, the consciousness of the absolute must project a hologram of itself and then perceive it. That hologram is a mirror image of the absolute in infinity, and it still exists outside of time and space, but it's one step removed from the absolute and is the actual agent of all creation. This is actually really interesting because that's a very Gnostic concept. The concept of the reflection of the all becomes the thing that creates the things that come next. It's pretty amazing. I am going to take this moment to say, if you like this stream, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I will be going live a lot, pretty much often with things like this, spooky stuff. I can even research things at your suggestion if you're interested. Really, the whole idea is that I'd like to hang out with you guys, get creeped out a little bit by some mind-blowing information about the universe, and possibly have some active conversations. As of right now, I'm going to tell you about the CHILIMANCER gaming stream. If you like video games, especially Pokemon, I do a gaming stream as well, so check that out, my guy. And you'll probably enjoy yourself. As far as everything goes, I am going to go ahead and take. We will be right back. You are listening to the CHILIMANCER Paranormal stream. When we return, we're going to have open lines in the Discord server. You're not going to want to miss that. Stay tuned, enjoy the haunting sounds, and sit tight. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have about a minute and 19 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and we're going into the open lines. Hello. The lines are open. It's open lines. Go ahead and I'm pretty sure guys, it's me, the Chilimancer. And we are hanging out. We are back. Johnny Small Pepper is back. Crazy Jay is here. David's here. We're all hanging out. It has been an eventful first hour. That was a fun little thing we did there, talking about the gateway process and everything. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit the like. I know that I think we got like 4 likes or something, I guess. So I appreciate you guys doing that. I am in the Discord server. I can't. Jay, can you hear me? Oh, you can hear me. Okay, I can't hear you for some reason.
I'm not saying.
Oh, there you go. I can hear you now. Beautiful. Here, let me get my volume mixer. Let's turn that up. Testy, testy, testy.
Testies 1 and 2. We're here together.
Here we go. I do have some music going. I think I'll just turn the music on down there.
I'm in Discord too, if you can hear me, Donnie.
Yeah, I can hear you. This is amazing.
My mic's not very good, so I'll just respond when asked a question or something.
Okay.
I hear you pretty clear too. So
Yeah, I hear you loud and clear.
leave it, Charlie. They say the military.
Here, I think I might just nix the music on the second half of the show, just so I know I can hear you guys and the audience can hear you. So Crazy Jay, you were talking about in the comment section that you had some thoughts. You had some ideas.
Yes, sir.
And what are those? What's on your mind?
So, well, I also have a paranormal experience I'd like to share later on if we can get into that.
Oh, absolutely.
But since we're on the topic of the thoughts and kind of behind the scenes or whatever that was kind of mentioned in the chat, it had to do with the dream world kind of theory things that I've kind of thought of. I obviously our body is made up of various energy sources.
Yeah.
So we're made up of different, potassium and all that good stuff that has to do with energy. Now I don't know the science behind the conscious mind versus subconscious mind. Obviously, I'm not into that type of thing. But for some reason, I believe our conscious mind puts up a firewall to our subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're subconscious, or even in dream state, our resting body can mix with the energies around us. And why I say that I have theories about that is because when your energy mixes with other energies, you're experiencing that energy. It's like bouncing off of each other, which is why I believe we can dream about things we've never actually experienced before, such as monsters or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We may have reached into somebody else's actual experience, whether it be in the past or the future. Something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Our mixing of energies in our subconscious mind that is bouncing all over the universe.
Okay.
I would agree.
So in that gateway document, they were talking about how your unconscious mind can like travel to like different parts of reality, and it has nothing really to do with time or space or anything like that, but like you could transport all the way across the entire universe, instantaneously.
Which is the study, I believe, of that fifth dimension they reach of, which is the forces, like the gravitational forces,
Hmm.
because I guess they're saying time is kind of the fourth dimension, if you the relativity of time, theory of time, or whatever. But because if you really think about it, time is kind of a man-made thing. I mean, I know things happen in sequence,
Yeah,
but is
time's
that
a
really
perception of your mind. Yes.
right? Is that really time? Time is, in my opinion, a human man-made thing. Does that kind of make sense to anybody?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, I agree. Time is definitely a perception. It doesn't physically exist.
Right. So now we're reaching into what the theory of like the fifth dimension, which is the observation of gravity and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like those external forces that are obviously here that keep us flat on the earth, keep us from floating away.
Hmm.
We don't see them. If you could ever, and I believe like some people that go into deep meditation try to reach that, and maybe they do, which might be the time traveler type of element to things.
Hmm.
Like they're reaching such a deep energy that subconsciously they're time traveling, but by the time they come back to their reality, they don't even realize that that actually took place. I know it's kind of weird, but that's just kind of like the things that bounce off of my head.
I think that last night we kind of touched on something that was sort of related that I'll kind of bring up, and we were talking about how the human mind can transport itself not only across time and space, but to alternate realities and alternate dimensions. We're talking about the duality, or what seems like a paradox between, is the world a deterministic place where what is going to happen in your future will always happen, or can you make changes and can you like change your reality? I think that I think that it's kind of both. I think that whatever path we're on at any given time, we can change that consciously if we put enough effort into that. You know what I mean? So you can change your path, even if it feels like your trajectory can't be changed. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it has to do with energy and will. You can change
Yes.
your future.
Yeah, willpower. And that's why there's a lot of stuff in the world that is really hard. That it's kind of amazing.
Believe in predetermined, like destiny or fate, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I personally don't believe in that.
Right. So that's where you kind of get into the theory or the whole, what was it, the final destination type of scenarios where people believe that if you try to alter things, you can experience something worse, stuff like that. But I don't believe that either. I actually believe that if you could subconsciously reach a future situation, that you could consciously change decisions now to make your future different.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's like most time travel movies. You make a decision in the past, you alter the future.
Right. And now my hardest thing to actually
Watch the movie Butterfly Effect.
Yeah.
That's a really good
correct.
concept for that.
Now, when my biggest difficulty in understanding is people now that can go into the past. Like, and when I say that is like, is mine now a time travel from me in the past? Like what I'm experiencing now, is that a time travel experience of me in the past, or am I
But you
experiencing?
gotta think of it like your reflection in the mirror. You're always seeing the past. You will never be able to truly experience the present.
Right, right. But what I'm saying, what I'm getting at is kind of the opposite. I can't see it, but what I am physically here, I'm in front of a computer talking to you all. Am I experience? And I know I'm experiencing this in life, but am I experiencing this in the future of a past version of myself, or am I actually, you know what I mean? Like that's my going into the past is my difficult type of acknowledgement.
Well, we touched on last night the what I was talking about, the chronovisor. Was you there for that discussion?
That is the first one I've been
It
in.
was towards the end of the video. But like the Vatican had a device supposedly called the chronovisor where they could view past events and whatnot using technology that implemented sound to pick up sound waves from somewhere out in the galaxy and convert them into an image or a video that would show an event that happened in the past, such as like the crucifixion of Jesus. A lot of them claim to have actually witnessed that on a television type machine called the chronovisor.
Interesting.
I
Like I said, I'm more of a believer of seeing things that could happen in the future than seeing things. I mean, like you said, we're always viewing our past. What I'm seeing is something that has already taken place. But how far in the past can we actually see? And like you said, that whole thing.
Well, according to the science and the studies that they did about the theories on the chronovisor, it is possible to go back as far as the beginning of the universe using sound technology. But you cannot technically see the future because it has yet to happen.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of
It's possible to view the past, but not possible to view the future. When you guys are talking about seeing the future, I think you're really looking into alternate or parallel dimensions, or like what the dream state.
yeah.
yes, I will agree with that.
Are you familiar with John Titor and the story of John Titor?
Yes, I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah, John Titor. He described time travel as being more like traveling into a parallel dimension, one that was side by side of ours. And as you go back in time, you divert from that timeline. So as you go back in time, you essentially go further from your own timeline, and things get more different.
Yeah, they get very distorted, and certain things won't match up. Like he's predicted events that haven't happened yet, but the timeline that he gave us didn't match what he was predicting.
Yeah, it could have been. He could have been very accurate based on his own timeline.
He could have unknowingly altered that timeline by distributing that information.
And he acknowledges that too.
Anytime
It's wild.
you give somebody information, they have the ability to make a choice to change, even if they don't realize they're making that choice.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It gets back into the consciousness thing. Do we actually make conscious and subconscious decisions without even knowing it?
Right.
A lot of folks would say that we do make a lot of decisions. Some people would argue that we make so many unconscious decisions that we don't ever really make a conscious decision. That everything that we do or everything that we choose has been influenced in some way by something that's imperceptible to us.
See, I always thought that, I've always told myself, if there's ever a time machine in my lifetime, that I would know about it because I would come back and visit my past self and get myself information.
Yep. Yep. Knowing, I would definitely be the type of person of knowing what I know now. I would go back and make a handful. I'm not saying I regret anything, but I would make a handful of different decisions that I know would obviously outcome my now existence.
Yeah, definitely. I think most people would. But if you get into the theories of the time and the parallel dimensions, would it really affect this dimension? Wouldn't this dimension continue on its path, but just branch off into another one?
Right, and that's the other thing is
Correct.
Would it ever actually alter what is happening now? Would that decision, I mean, have actually changed?
I don't think it would have changed anything in our current dimension or whatever you want to call it.
And now we're talking about the actual functionality behind the idea that each individual dimension is deterministic and consciousness can travel to different realities and essentially avoiding the determinism of each individual timeline.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
That
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
that is wild. Guys, I think that the most wild part about all of this is that it's scientifically minded. It's scientifically based. It's not just weird conjectures. I think that
These aren't just theories. They're things people, ideas, and things people's actually studied.
yeah.
And again, I think it all relates to the reason it's scientific is energy. The energy and the motion of everything that's going on simultaneously, it all boils down to some type of energy.
David said something in the comments section. He said, "We make decisions by our past or others' pasts." Or, like Crazy Jay was saying, maybe we're living in the past and currently the holographic self in the present, maybe. I've heard theories that we're actually, our entire universe is on the event horizon of a black hole as a hologram, and we are being projected to this space from a black hole that could potentially be, billions of light years away.
Yeah, so similar to people believing in the simulation theory.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So here's something. So because I've actually kind of had theories of the existence of humans and the existence of energy for a while, and not like in an intelligent way, but even when I was younger. And one of the things that I've actually dismissed, but it was something I considered younger, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it up just because we're talking about it. Was is my awakened self somebody else's dream state? In my dream state, somebody else's awakened state.
I have had that same thought.
Yeah, it's definitely deep thoughts. That's for sure.
Speaking of
Yeah.
of dream states, I actually have, and this might kind of like freak you out a little bit. I have had this obsession with the that poem, that nursery rhyme / song, "Row, row, row your boat," for a while. If you break down each individual line of that song, it's actually really deep and metaphysical. So it says, "Row, row, row your boat," which means like go through your life in consciousness. And also I take it as referring to life itself, and the consciousness traveling through its experience as a flow, kind of like a river. Or the stream of consciousness, as they call it. So row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. So the gently part means don't try to force anything. Merrily, 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 merrily. And that kind of, to me, signifies a kind of ignorance, a divine ignorance, if you will, that, we just live through this life merrily because life is but a dream and everything is a hologram, and we're inside of this dream, inside of the mind of God, if you will. And each one of us could be a different aspect of ourself that we will never access because this timeline, we're the specific consciousness we are, but maybe outside of time, we are all the same consciousness living at the exact same time. Who knows? Who knows?
No, that's interesting. I like that.
I know this is the kind of stuff that goes through
Yeah,
my
I've never
head,
heard that concept.
Yeah, well, it's something
No,
that
but I like it.
I kind of came up with it. This is something that I just think about
Yeah,
based
that
on.
is interesting. That's very philosophical.
And if you think,
It's actually it's kind of along this and I'm not saying it's equal, but if you really think of the deep and darkness of nursery rhymes and their actual history, that they've turned negative events
Yeah,
of
like
life,
Ring Around the Rosie.
yes,
into a fun child loving song. That's
Yeah.
weird. That's creepy if you really think of it deep.
I think that a lot of the creepy truths of life are encoded in nursery rhymes because they're easy to remember and they pass along like a virus, like they're like memes.
Sure. And like you said, it keeps what happened
Like
in
memory implanting.
somebody's,
Yeah,
somebody's existence alive by almost, I don't want to say making fun of it, but making it enjoyable.
Yeah.
Well, I got a for instance for you guys
Okay.
on the subject of like memory rhymes and music and passing on things. Um, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Eminem, the rap artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like when he wrote the song "Rap God,"
Hmm.
and he in one of the lines in the song, I ain't gonna quote the exact lines, but he described himself as reaching immortality.
Uh huh.
Well, because he went down in history for that song. It was a lyrical masterpiece, and he described it as immortality because he finally his memory will always live on.
Yeah. That's why people carve in stone. You know, they carve their effigies in stone. They've
Yeah,
built
they want to be
mounds and
remembered.
pyramids. Exactly. That's the only way that you can be immortal is to leave your mark upon an ever-changing universe. And one way to do that is by songs. You know, I think that folklore and songs and things like that, things that we don't think about where they came from. There's stuff right now, concepts and ideas that have probably been around for hundreds of thousands of years, and we don't know why or how they got started.
Well, I'll tell you another thing that's, I might be reaching a little bit
Yeah.
because it's all obviously like fairy tales are obviously an interpretation of somebody else's fantasies. But like if you read something like Grimm's fairy tales, who are the dark side of fairy tales, and you're like,
Yeah,
oh my goodness, that's you start seeing it from a different perspective, and it's like, you know what? Wow.
yes. Perspective in general is an interesting subject.
What do you
Think,
mean?
think about all the Hollywood movies they're making now from villains' perspectives. Take, for instance, the movie The Joker. You
Yeah,
sympathize with that character, but in the original concept, you view him as a villain.
that makes sense,
Hmm.
actually. Yeah, you're right.
So
What
when you're thinking about anything, you need to think of it from different perspectives.
what do you think about the idea that we might be living this particular universe that we're in right now could be a hell universe? Have you heard of this theory that we're all dead and living in hell?
I've heard of that theory. I don't know if I particularly agree with it, but I've definitely heard of it.
I think that it's kind of interesting to at least it's an interesting thought experiment because if you think about Dante Alighieri and the you know basically the story of traveling through hell and then through limbo and then going up to
Yeah,
paradise and comparing that to a person's development, that is it's really kind of cool how he did that because that's how life kind of works out. You do have your own personal story going through. Basically each of us kind of grows up having lies implanted into us of some kind, and then whenever we finally grow up and we mature and we figure out that those things are lies, then we have some kind of dissonance, and the way that we deal with that dissonance depends on the things that we've learned and the things that we've experienced and our willingness and aptitude to be able to self-identify objectively and to make those changes. So, you know, even just being a person, our perception changes tremendously as we get older. And like you were talking about, our perception is kind of important.
yeah, definitely. On the subject of like Dante and the layers of hell, I don't think I got enough time to get into it now, but I had a dream one time that I actually went to hell.
Oh wow.
And without going into great detail, I will, because I don't think we have time for it right now, but I went through four different layers of it, and each layer was unique and terrifying. And it wasn't like anything that, I grew up with a religious background,
Okay.
but it wasn't like anything from my religious beliefs.
So tell me about it. Tell me what happened. We have around a half an hour left. We can definitely get
All
some
right,
ideas
if
because
you're interested,
I am definitely interested in hearing about the
Me
four
too.
different
I'm not
layers of
gonna
hell for
lie.
sure.
I'm kind of getting like spine tingly trying to listen to this.
yeah, well, in when I was dreaming, because for some reason I knew I was dreaming, but in the first layer that I had gone through, what I perceived was nothing but darkness, but you could hear everyone around you. It was like you were in a mosh pit, but everything was dark. You couldn't see anything, and it was terrifying, like screaming and just chaos. And through the darkness, like I made my way through this mosh pit of chaos, and I came to like a door, and I opened the door, and I went through it, and I went into another layer that was like, I guess you could describe it as a labyrinth.
Okay.
And it was like made of plants that they had like thorns, and like they were alive, and it was like a giant maze, and there was like creatures in it that were like torturing and killing and things like that.
Yeah.
But to make that part shorter, I eventually made it through this labyrinth, and I found what looked like a refrigerator
Okay.
in the middle of the labyrinth, right? So it looked like a refrigerator, so I opened it, and it was a door. And I walked through that door, and I'm in a new layer. And the new layer was like these really long, I don't know how to describe them. They're like really long bridges made out of like metal, like the construction type bridges, where like the holes on the bottom you could see through like a mesh.
Yeah.
And it was steam everywhere, like it was a really hot construction site and a huge factory. But the bridges were so long, like you couldn't even see the end of them, and there was millions of them, thousands, all around. But I was on this particular one with other people that were basically shoving me forward. And I got to what I would perceive as the end of this bridge after a while. And when I walked through the third door, I woke up.
Whoa. So.
Wow.
So if the layers of hell theory sinks to my dream, and if what you're saying holds true, this could be Earth itself, and our reality could be the fourth layer.
It could be. It could definitely be another layer.
Just a theory,
Then,
but I don't even believe it myself, but it was just a dream I had.
That's actually an amazing dream. It's like really metaphysical. And you said it was a lucid dream, right? Do you have lucid dreams often?
I understood that I was in a dream. Like I had no control of what was happening, really, but like I understood that I was asleep, but this was happening. I didn't. It's hard to describe.
I had a dream that was kind of similar to that. Now that you're mentioning it, I had a dream that I was in a town that I had never been before, and there were these people working on a computer. They were like my next door neighbors, and they were working on this special kind of computer, and they wanted me to take a look at it. And so I did, and it was like apparently this amazing computer. And the next thing I remember, I'm like driving, like I'm supposed to be taking it to some place. So I'm in the car driving this computer somewhere and driving down the road. And then all of a sudden, I'm on a bicycle. And whenever I go from being in the car to being on the bicycle, I switch. And I realize that I'm in a dream. And then the bicycle disappears and I just start floating into the air, and I'm flying at this point, like Neo in the Matrix. And so I fly up so high that I clip outside of the level of reality I was in. If you've ever done like a God mode or no clipping mode in video games.
Like in a video game, yeah.
Yeah, I did that. And it was like black all around, and I could see the stage. The world looked like a level. And so I went into another zone, and I flew down, and I got trapped inside of the zone that I flew to. And so
So was this dream in like first person or like a third person perspective?
it was in the perspective of me being me.
Oh,
So I
first
was
person. Okay.
I was first person seeing my hands, seeing reality. And so I fly to this weird little cube. It looked like a cube, like a void, as I was clipping outside. I know that sounds weird, but I went
Yeah, what
there.
dreams usually do.
Yeah, so I'm inside of this cube and I realize that there's like soft green light around me and there's like this little stage, like a little stage area, like a step up, and it has a throne on it. And everything's black, but with a weird green glowing that is like making it slightly illuminated. And so I do a backflip for some reason, and then I go to another level. So instead of physically flying out of this place, it's becoming apparent to me that I have to like do this backflip. And as I'm doing this backflip, it's spinning the universe around me, and I'm going down into a subatomic level and going into a new dimension, if that makes any sense at all. So
Oh yeah, no, I've had like my hell dream. It sounds very similar. Like you were descending through different levels of reality.
exactly. And I at this point I know that I'm dreaming. I can't wake up and I'm trapped inside of this weird black cube with like these green lights in this throne. And
Yeah.
so I hear this voice that says he's coming, and I freak out. And I'm like, "Oh my god, what does that mean?" And so I do another backflip, and I'm not in these black rooms anymore. These stone, it looks like a cave or something. I'm not in those anymore. And in fact, I'm in a hospital, in a hallway, and I realize that I'm a ghost. And I can't get out of this hallway. And I'm trapped in a hospital between these two doorways, and it's like very specific. So I think I might have, I mean, I don't know if I believe this, but like it felt like my consciousness traveled through these different dimensions into the consciousness of a ghost that was haunting the place. And that's kind of what I gathered out of it. It was real weird.
So I have a really quick dream story, and I don't know if it reaches levels like you guys are talking about, but it would be something that I would compare to like my personal type of hell theory, you know.
Okay.
Um uh and then if I get a chance, this is actually really quick. And then if I get a chance, I'd like to share my real life experience with my paranormal
Absolutely.
thing. But but so I had this dream that I came. So when I grew up in a double wide trailer. All right, no big deal, whatever. But so I had this dream that I walked out my back door, your standard back door to a, you know, and I had this nice side, little open porch type thing you walked out onto, and the difference was instead of it being in a neighborhood or a trailer park or type of thing, it was when I came out, it was this big open field, kind of like a Braveheart thing where everybody's charging, right? But the people that are charging are children. And for those who know me or will get to know me, um, I always have had a liking to helping children do things better in their life and, you know, just feeling accomplished so that they have a goal. You know, they don't just feel kind of shut out in the world. And I do believe that children are the future. So I've always supported children in that aspect.
Hmm.
And I've always been the type of person that like children kind of flock to for guidance or for like just having fun. Like I'm that fun uncle that will throw you into the pool, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
Like
for
that's the
sure.
type of person I am. So anyway, I step out my back door, and instead of being this neighborhood, all the houses and stuff were gone. But I had like over this hill, all these kids were running. These children were running like towards me, and I'm like, what is going on? Now I felt that I was there, and I visioned this, like I visioned this in my own perspective, and I seen these kids running down over the hill. And as they got closer and they got closer, I'm like, what is going on? And finally, this, I mean, I'm talking like thousands of kids, not just a few, like thousands of kids. And I see this big, giant front end, like type of like field lawnmower thing, just grinding and running over kids on like tricycles, trying to get away and running and screaming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta help these kids. They're like, what is going on? But as the
Wow.
kids got closer, or as I reached out to help the kids, I got this like perspective. Like if you reach out your hand, but they got further away, like from like when I perceived it, like as I reached, they might have been like from me to like I don't even know how to describe it because obviously you can't see me, but
Mhm.
if I was maybe 5 feet away and I would run to them, and as I reached out my hand, they would get further in my perspective away, like they were being sucked away and reaching and like calling for help. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't help these kids. And I would just watch them get run over and just destroyed by this big, giant, like evil looking machine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do about this. And I was like, oh my God. So I run into my house to yell for help, and that is when I woke up.
Oh
Like
my
going through a
God.
door. It was creepy to me because I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh wow. That
Yeah.
sounds like a Stephen King movie or something.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Yeah, it does.
I lived that and I told that story because I was in the military at the time, and I told that story to my friends, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, what the hell?" I wasn't in any position to do that. I was, doing other things, but man.
Oh, Krista said, Donnie, I came upon and clicked in this live video after coming to share the channel with a friend. I was sharing some reminiscent memories and missing our deep talks. I tuned in right on time. Well, it was really, oh man, that is amazing. That's how the universe works. That's
A perfect example.
It's a perfect example. Krista actually said, hey, the four layers of hell dream essentially described one of the most powerful psychedelic experience that I've ever had. The labyrinth was a spiral. I,
Yeah, that's the way it felt. Yeah.
Krista, I would love to have you on the show to talk about that
For sure.
because I want to hear about your psychedelic experience and how you had navigated that. That's amazing. And Erica says, I'm so sorry I'm late. I'm glad I'm at least catching some of it. We're glad that you're catching some of it too. Earlier in the episode, we were talking about the gateway process, the gateway document, and the HemiSync technology created by this corporation working for the United States government to basically eject consciousness out of the body into the vast universe beyond time and space, down to the below the sub-Planck level to transport your intellect into a different dimension. This is some weird stuff, guys. It's kind of out there, but I love this kind of stuff. It's like brain candy, you know?
So, if nobody has any objections, I would like to share my story. And the reason I would like
I
to
would love
share
to
it
hear
is
that.
right. It really pulls at me, especially with the holographic talk we talked about. And this is
Yes.
and when I tell the story, you'll understand why it relates. So if everybody's
Yeah, I've
good,
got a short related one after you're done as well.
Absolutely.
all right, great. And this is not a super long story, but I will, I'll give you you'll hear the emotion, you'll hear the feelings because this is a real life scenario that actually happened to me. All right, so when I
He cut out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think your mic cut out.
Either that or maybe he transported to another alternate dimension.
Possibly. They found us out. They're abducting us now.
You hear me?
I hear you now, loud and
Yeah,
clear.
you're back.
Yeah, I lost my thing on my computer, but that's all right. But I'm back.
Okay,
All right. Everybody can hear me?
we can hear you now. Proceed
Okay,
with the
good.
story.
All right. So anyway, I joined the military. I did 4 years. I served 4 years in the military. I did from 2000 to 2004. When I got out of the military, I had to find a job like any other normal human being would, and I found a job at a restaurant. And I usually work the evening hours, about 3 o'clock to close or whatever. Sometimes we were short, so you work long hours, whatever. But anyway, my mom passed away at a very young age. She was 45 years old when she
Mhm.
was in 2005, in May of 2005. 1 week later, I was supposed to be getting married.
Oh man.
It's like my girlfriend at the time. But anyway, I was coming home. I worked at a restaurant, and it was a night that we close at midnight. You know, so you close the doors at midnight, lock the doors at midnight. You got some cleaning to do. You have a couple other things. Yeah, it roughly takes 45 minutes or up to an hour to get everything geared up and ready to go. So I'm leaving. I'm tired. I'm exhausted, and my drive was probably about 30 minutes away at the time. Just because I didn't mean I live kind of. So I'm driving home. I'm tired, and I'm going around this kind of back road type of thing that kind of goes around the left side. Picturing this, the left side is like a mountain coming down, like definitely a mountain. And then I'm on this road, and then beside me, a guardrail, and then it goes down. So I'm like kind of driving on a mountain road, and I'm going around this big long turn, and this herd of deer, 5, 6 deer, run out in front of me, and it was kind of caught me by surprise because I couldn't see coming around the turn. So I swerved to the left as a driver, swerved to the left. I run into the oncoming lane, and because the deer were kind of crossing my path, so I swerved to the left, and this tractor trailer hit me. Oh, not hit me, but was coming at me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And it was the whole, like you've seen in movies, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I literally let go of the steering wheel, closed my eyes because I thought I was going to die.
Wow.
At that very moment, I'm sitting back in my seat in my car. I drove a 92 Camaro RS back then, so you can get the picture of the vision. This is just to give you the image. As I sit back in the car, close my eyes, cover my face because I'm thinking I'm gonna die, seriously injured, something. There's this. My car jerks off the. I'm sorry to say it that way. Hey, there's a jerk on my car, and I kind of go to the right and kind of go down over the hill where it just starts. The guardrail ends, and it doesn't quite fall off a cliff. It just kind of guides down slowly, and like right before I hit a tree, stop. I come to this dead stop. And I'm white as a ghost, and I can feel my body like my drop, and I look over to the right. And from the driver's seat, in my passenger seat, my mother, plain as day. Well, I don't want to say plain as day, but if you can imagine like watching your TV late at night back in the days with the snowy effect.
Yeah.
She had this like blue tint to her where she was kind of like there, but not. Like I could see her, but she had like a see-through kind of image to her. And she literally looked at me and took my hand and said, "I always will be here to protect you. I told you that before I passed away." She literally said that to
Oh
me.
my god.
And I'm like,
I have
I got myself gathered up because I didn't have
like
the
a
cell
guardian
phone.
angel type experience.
And I got myself gathered up, got home, and my girlfriend at the time, "Oh my gosh, you're white as a ghost. What happened?" And I explained the story to her, and she's like, "Oh my gosh." So that is my real life holographic experience.
Oh my god. That is one of the most vivid supernatural things that I have heard anybody talk about that I know of. That is amazing.
Yeah, dude, I remember it to a T, and I could tell that story exactly, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like I said, that happened back in 2005.
Wow, I don't know how anybody could ever forget anything like that. That would definitely stick with you. Wow.
Yeah, definitely.
Like what a close call, and then what a shocking thing to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
How many people have you told about that? Quite a bit.
Well, now the world, as soon as they listen.
Oh yeah.
But beforehand, probably five people that I trusted. But I just felt compelled because the way that things kind of flowed with the holographic thing today and
Yeah,
the dimensions.
in the way that consciousness can kind of like move, man, it's will, I know earlier DJ mentioned something about, it is the will, and if you have high willpower, some really weird stuff is possible.
Yeah, for sure.
Krista in the comments section says, I didn't realize you meant right now my ability to translate my thoughts from image to word is currently diminished. That is perfectly fine. Actually, if you join that Discord server, then you will be on the front row of the planning of these episodes. So you can volunteer to be on an episode if you want, whenever works for you. I'm going to try to do this thing each night. I'm sure I'm not going to do it every single night, but I try to be consistent with it going forward. These have been a whole lot of fun the past 2 days, and
thanks for letting me share. That was awesome to get out there.
Thanks for sharing, and definitely if you have any more experiences or anything like that, I definitely want to hear about it. That's what this is all about.
And I used to be a skeptic at one point in my life.
Yeah, DJ, didn't you say that you had something that happened to you that was?
Yeah, I have a short one that was it was like the only, like how he had a similar, like a out of body experience, I guess you could call it.
Mm-hmm.
The closest thing like I've got that I remember to being like astral projection or out of body. I remember one night when I was fairly young, I was living with my parents because I was a kid, but I was sleeping and I woke up in the middle of the night for some reason, like I was thirsty. I was going to go get something to drink.
Mm-hmm.
And I stood up out of my bed and there's a dark figure standing in the doorway to my room. And the only light that was on was the one in the kitchen, so it was difficult to actually make out if it was a person. But the figure looked like it was pointing, like, behind me. So I looked behind me, and I see myself sleeping in the bed.
Oh.
So it was very strange.
So you had an out-of-body experience.
Well, I feel like the dark figure, most people would think it was like a shadow person or something like that. I think it was stopping me from going anywhere in my astral projection out of body thing. I think it was some kind of like can't just like a guardian.
Yeah, like a gatekeeper or something like that to keep you
protecting me from harm.
Yeah, or like permanently separating your consciousness from your body. That's wild.
But it was like a dream, like, but I didn't know when I woke up and stood up and seen the figure that I was dreaming until I turned around and seen myself lying in the bed sleeping.
So were you having some kind of maybe a sleep paralysis? Was it kind of like a sleep paralysis thing, or?
No, I've never personally had sleep paralysis, but it felt more like astral projection, I guess.
Wow. That's wild.
I know a lot of people that have experienced sleep paralysis, and I did some research on it like we talked about last night. A Jewish tradition believes it's something called a debuk or debuk demon.
Yeah, those things were weird. You were telling me about that. It's like the ghost of a person that gets attached to another person and kind of haunts them, like a poltergeist.
Yeah, and they sit on the chest of their victims while they sleep.
So that is just like that sleep paralysis demon.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yeah, this actually didn't go anywhere that I thought it was going to go tonight. I had actually wanted to talk about like a paranormal and or cryptid, but I don't think we'll have enough time for that tonight, but maybe in the future we can get on it.
I would love to do it tomorrow. I plan on being here in the same spooky place at the same spooky time. We can
around 10 o'clock-ish.
Yeah, that sounds good. 10 p.m.
If I'm available, I'll try and make it.
Okay. Yeah, I will. Actually, you know what? Let's do some cryptids tomorrow. I'll get a nice little list of cryptids. Maybe try to get some obscure ones from places that we don't normally hear from online or something like that.
This particular one I wanted to discuss was one that I coined the name. I call it the Shadow Beast,
Okay.
and I've never. A lot of people believe that they are skinwalkers or Bigfoot or shadow people, but from my experience, I don't think it's any of those things. And I actually found a clip. Because I go around on YouTube and a lot and look at paranormal videos and stuff like that and kind of dissect which ones are hoax, and 90% of them are hoax. But I found one that, whether it's a hoax or not, it best describes what, to give people a visual. It's the best visual representation of what I could describe as the Shadow Beast.
This has been awesome. I can't wait.
This has been a lot of fun, and it's just going to keep getting better. You know, we're going to keep having episodes and keep developing different ideas, and I'll try to streamline all of this stuff so it works better, and we'll have a nice little show. That'll be good.
Donnie, about some of my interest in your videos and some ideas that I had. If you have time after the video, I'd like to discuss a few ideas of mine.
Sure, that works for me. That sounds pretty good. I'll bring my notepad.
Yeah, I'm big time interested in the paranormal and other dimensional type of things, man. So,
all right,
definitely a topic I'm gonna follow.
I just started flooding out stories to you.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? That's what we'll do. I will let's hang out here in the Discord after the show is over, and we'll come up with some stuff and maybe write down some notes for some upcoming episodes and some different ideas that we could all have. That sounds really good. My kitty cat. He came into the room.
I can see him.
He's down there. He's
a paranormal.
he's a paranormal cat. It's actually.
I think cats are related to paranormal activity. I'm not gonna lie.
Definitely.
Some people think that cats are aliens. Yeah.
I don't know about aliens, but I definitely believe they have some sort of sense to the afterlife.
A lot of ancient beliefs thought that cats were the guardians to the gates of hell. Like, there's actually 2 different large cats that have names that are described in older religions to guard the gates of hell.
I don't doubt that. I mean, cats are kind of. I mean, have you ever had a cat? They're demons.
Oh, yeah. I've had quite a few cats in my life, and only one of them I actually liked.
Aw. Poor thing.
Growing up, my grandmother had cats, but I am not a cat fan myself. But
yeah,
you know,
I've never been a cat fan, but I've got 5.
And creatures, that's for sure.
Well, guys, we've got about 5 minutes until midnight, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about, the channel and everything. This is the CHILIMANCER channel. Let's go ahead and take a look, and I'm going to see how many subscribers we've got here and everything. I do need to get. We've got 981, so we're getting pretty close to that 1,000 subscribers. These streams should help with that. I'm just having fun doing it, but it does feel really good to see that it's actually getting some traction and stuff. I've been working on this channel for about a year now, year and a half, possibly a year and 3 months, something like that. And so to see it get up near around 1,000 is extremely rewarding so far. Just to know that many people have. Yeah, and I hope it keeps going too. I hope you guys stay here with me on this awesome ride. I do like doing spicy stuff, and I'll keep posting stuff about hot peppers and hot sauces and growing hot peppers and things like that. But I've got a lot more interests as well, and I'm having a whole lot of fun bringing them to the internet with you guys right here. David McCoffey says, I'm into ghosts, UFOs, paranormal, military, space, government cover-ups, and much more. I've had ghost paranormal experiences, and my mother experienced a UFO. Well, David,
please share them with us.
Please share them with us. If you look up just a few comments, you will see a Discord server. Go ahead and click that link if you haven't already, and join the Discord server. That is a self-destructing link, so it won't be there and won't be available forever. But as of right now, in the next few hours, you can join us in the Discord server. And you're welcome to come on a future episode and tell us all about your spooky tales. Krista Ray, wave to say hi.
I personally am interested in shape-shifting and a believer in shapeshifters.
Okay, well, let's get a shapeshifter episode going up here. Shapeshifters, skinwalkers, all kinds of crap like that.
Heck yeah, I'm excited.
All right, well, this has been the CHILIMANCER's paranormal stream. I don't know what we're calling this yet, but I'm the CHILIMANCER. Thank you, Daniel Baker, aka DJ, and Crazy J, for hanging out here with us on hour 2, talking about all kinds of spooky stuff tonight. It was a really good episode. I appreciate you guys.
I appreciate you, and I hope to see others join us as well and share their stories.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great night.